Assalamu alaikum. Today I want to talk about the subject of loneliness and how it impacts our life and what we can do if we're feeling lonely. First of all, there's a narration by Imam as-Sadiq, our sixth Imam, that says, "Our true followers are those who, when they are alone, remember Allah abundantly." So I'll repeat that. Our true followers are those who, when they are alone, remember Allah abundantly. What does this mean? This means that He's giving us a criteria for what does it mean to do when you're alone? How should you act when you're alone? What types of things should you think about? How should your alone time be spent? So first of all, he's saying that you remember God a lot. Remembering God can give us different outcomes in our life. Before we get into that, what I want to talk about is the difference between being alone and feeling lonely. Loneliness is something that's very common in our society, and a lot of people express it and feel it. Loneliness is when you feel like there's no one that understands you, when you could be surrounded by several people but you still feel very alone, you feel rejected, you feel empty, you feel unworthy of love. Now these are some real serious issues that we could experience, and they could be for a variety of reasons. Some of the things, so we're taught by our Imam that when you're alone, you should remember God. Now, being alone is different than feeling lonely. You could be alone, but you're not lonely. Being alone could mean that you're physically alone, where there's no one around you, or you could be alone in your thoughts, alone, even though you're surrounded by people, but you're still there. Focusing on something in particular at that moment of time. So what are some of the things that we could think about when we're alone or if we're feeling lonely to help us feel better? He says remembering God. Well, when we take God and we try to remember Him, what does that look like? That could look like several ways. Number one, it could mean that we remember His greatness and His position in this universe, being the all-powerful, being the all-hearing, the all-seeing. So whenever you're feeling lonely, you could remember that God is there hearing you and seeing you, and you're never really alone. There's never a time when, someone might not physically be with you, but there's always this higher power that's watching you, that's listening to you, that knows what is whispering in your heart, that knows those feelings that you're going through, that knows that sadness that you might be experiencing. So at that moment, when you recognize that should alleviate some of the lonely feelings. Another thing that we can think about in terms of God, if we're feeling lonely, is we can think about His power and His ability to help us change our life. So if we're feeling that we're not happy with the circumstances in our life, or we're not happy with our friendships or with those relationships that are supposed to be fulfilling and giving us meaning and love and compassion and companionship, if we're not feeling that we have that, you can ask God to help you change your life. You can ask Him to make you more aware of the things that you're experiencing, aware of your feelings. Open up the doors, bring new people in your life. Once you start thinking about something, you actively work towards it. So if you start thinking about how can you have a more fulfilling life, you're going to change some of the things that you're not pleased with right now. So another thing that we can think about if we're feeling lonely when it comes down to God is His purpose for us in this life. When we realize that we're here for a reason and we're here to understand our purpose and understand our relationship with Him more, and know that we're not just created in vain. We're not just created to eat and sleep and live day to day, but there's something bigger than us. There's something more important than us. When we realize that, that there's something greater than us, and we connect that with Him wanting us to be better human beings, having better morals, better ethics, gaining knowledge on a daily basis, making a difference in lives of others, understanding ourselves, our strengths, our weaknesses, because this life is temporary and it'll end soon. When we think about that, right away you start feeling a little bit more worth, your worth. You understand your self-worth. You understand that you're amazing, you're important, you have a purpose. You know, God created you for a reason, and He didn't just want you to be like an animal who lives and eats and breathes and then just dies. You know, He wants you to elevate yourself to reach this high level of humanity, to care for others, to care for yourself, and to become that great human being and take the example of our prophets and imams as role models. So these are the types of things that we could think about if we're ever feeling lonely, if we're ever feeling unwanted, if we're ever feeling like we don't have anyone there for us. We can remember that God is there for us. He can help us change. He's given us all the abilities inside, and He has opened the doors, and He will open if we just turn to Him and ask Him to make our lives better and more fruitful and more encompassing. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear your comments and your replies. If you have anything that you'd like to talk about on this, leave me a reply. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum.